Organizations often become larger than the people who create them, but history also shows that the vision of a founder can leave an enduring mark long after that individual is gone. By the time Charlie Kirk had become one of the most recognizable figures in modern American conservatism, Turning Point USA had grown from a small startup founded in 2012 into one of the largest conservative youth organizations in the United States. What began as an effort to encourage college students to engage in political discussion had evolved into a nationwide network with chapters on hundreds of high school and college campuses, major conferences attended by thousands of students, educational initiatives, leadership training programs, and a substantial digital media presence. Whether viewed as an important force for conservative activism or as a polarizing political organization, Turning Point USA had undeniably become a significant institution within American politics, and Charlie Kirk remained at the center of its growth strategy and public identity. From the beginning, Kirk believed that the future of American politics would be shaped by the younger generations. While many established political organizations had focused primarily on traditional campaign operations or established voter blocs, Turning Point USA concentrated its efforts on students, young professionals, and first time voters. The organization mission emphasized free markets, limited government, individual liberty, constitutional rights, and civic participation. Supporters believed these principles had provided young Americans with an alternative perspective on campuses where they felt conservative viewpoints were underrepresented. The critics had questioned aspects of the organization's messaging and the tactics, arguing that some activists contributed to political polarization. These competing perspectives become part of the organization's public identity, reflecting the broader ideological divisions that increasingly characterize American political life. Charlie Kirk's leadership style differed from that of many traditional political figures. Rather than rising through elected office, he had built his influence through organization, communication, and media. He traveled extensively across the country, speaking directly with students, appearing on television, hosting podcasts, participating in debates, writing books, and maintaining an active presence across digital platforms. He understood that the modern political communication no longer depended solely on newspapers or even news broadcasts. Podcasts, live streams, social media platforms, online video, and independent media had fundamentally changed new Americans' how they consume the information. Kirk embraced these changes early, helping Turning Point USA become one of the most recognizable conservative organizations among young audiences. The leadership within any movement requires more than public speaking. It demands fundraising, strategic planning, recruitment, organizational development, and the abilities to inspire others to carry forward a shared mission. Under Kirk's leadership, Turning Point USA had expanded beyond the campus chapters to include leadership conferences, educational events, media initiatives, and specialized programs designed to encourage civic engagement among young conservatives. The organization's annual gatherings brought together the elected officials, policy experts, journalists, students, and activists, creating opportunities for the networking, education, and political discussions. These events also reinforce the organization's broader goal of preparing future leaders who would continue participating in public life long after graduation. Like many influential political organizations, Turning Point USA experienced periods of rapid growth alongside public controversy. Journalists, academics, advocacy groups, and political opponents closely examined its activities, fundraising, campus initiatives, and public messaging. The supporters often argued that this scrutiny reflected the organization's growing influence and a willingness to challenge prevailing ideals with higher education. The critics maintained that some of its methods intensified political conflict or oversimplified the complex policy debates. Regardless of perspective, these discussions demonstrated that Turning Point USA had become impossible to ignore within the broader landscape of American political activism. Charlie Kirk's influence had also extended beyond the organizational leadership into evolving conservative media ecosystems. Through books, podcasts, interviews, documentaries, public appearances, and online commentary, he became one of the most recognizable communicators representing the America First movement. He discussed domestic policies, economics, education, constitutional law, immigration, foreign affairs, and cultural issues with audiences numbering in the millions. His communication style emphasized direct engagement, rapid response to current events, and accessibility to younger viewers who increasingly consumed the political content through digital platforms rather than traditional media outlets. In many ways, his career reflected the broader transformation of political communication during the 21st century. Leadership also involves the developing successors and creating institutions capable of continuing without their founders. History offers countless examples of organizations that struggled after losing a charismatic leader, while others successfully adapted by strengthening the internal leadership structures and remaining focused on their founding mission. Following Charlie Kirk's death, attention naturally shifted toward the future of Turning Point USA. The supporters expressed confidence that the organization would continue advancing the principles on which it was founded, while the observers questioned how the movement might evolve without the individual who had become its most recognizable public representative. These discussions were not unique to Turning Point USA, but it did reflect a common challenge faced by organizations across politics, business, and civic life after the loss of an influential founder. Legacy is often measured not only by the accomplishments during a lifetime, but by the lasting impact left on institutions, ideas, and future generations. Charlie Kirk supporters point to the thousands of students who become politically active through Turning Point USA, the expansion of conservative youth engagement, and the organization's continuing presence on campuses nationwide as evidence of his enduring influence. Critics continue to debate aspects of his rhetoric, political strategy, and the broader effects of increasing ideological polarization in American public life. Together, these differing assessments will illustrate the complexity of evaluating any public figure whose work influenced millions of people during a period of profound political change. Perhaps Charlie Kirk's greatest organizational achievement was recognizing that politics had entered a new era in which technology, digital media, and grassroots activism could rapidly transform local movements into national conversations. Turning Point USA's growth reflected these changing realities, demonstrating how a relatively small organization that could leverage communication, volunteer networks, and online engagements to build a nationwide presence in little more than a decade. Regardless of political affiliation, many analysts acknowledge that the organization's communication strategies significantly influence how modern political advocacy reaches our younger audiences. As history continues to evaluate Charlie Kirk's life and career, his legacy will likely be viewed through multiple lenses. Some will remember him primarily as the founder of a major conservative youth movement. Others will focus on his role as a political commentator, media personality, or organizer. But still, others will continue debating the broader cultural and political effects of his work. Such differing interpretations are common for the influential public figures whose careers unfold during periods of national transformation. But what remains beyond dispute is that Charlie Kirk helped shape the conversations about youth engagement, free speech, political participation, education, and the future direction of American conservatism. The institution he helped build continued to operate, ensuring that discussions surrounding his ideas and his influence will remain part of American political life for years to come. Yet every legacy ultimately raises one final question. How does a movement continue after the loss of one of its defining voices? And what path does the nation itself take as after the loss of one of its. I'm sorry, let me repeat that. Yet every legacy ultimately raises one final question. How does a movement continue after the loss of one of its defining voices? And what path does the nation itself take as political leadership evolves and new generations step forward? Those questions extend beyond Charlie Kirk alone and lead directly into the final chapter of this documentary, where we examine the future of America after Charlie Kirk, the continuing evolution of the conservative movement, and the lasting influence that one individual can have on the political landscape long after history turns the page. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.